Hey guys, Casual Crono here. In this character development series, we're going to focus on Xianhua. She's an extremely powerful null magic user. So I wanted to share what I've learned. Keep in mind, as always, I'm not an expert on this game, so there might be different ways to use her that are better than what I'm suggesting. But if you happen to pull her, I wanted to give you kind of a starting point on how to use her. First things first, Xianhua is a scientist. She has various personality traits, and I believe one of them, Synth Human, appears as you do your character quests. And I won't spoil all the details on that. Just know that in order to get all the personality traits, you need to do all of her character quests. As far as skills, she has a number of very interesting skills. It's actually a little bit hard to limit it down to 3. A skill that basically improves is Node, Vector, and Horizon. It's a magic attack. It affects all enemies. Its strength is multiplied in each case. And its strength ignores defenses, so it treats it like it has a magic defense of 0, whatever the magic defense is. The strength is based on the user's intellect, which makes sense. It's a magic attack. So the higher your intellect, the stronger the attack is. That's kind of a no-brainer. It has this whole thing, added int value, max int value 2000. And if you look on the wiki, there's this whole calculation. But basically just know the higher you can get your int, either through buffs, through base, mental focus, etc., the stronger it is, which is pretty much true for all skills. Horizon is one of the 3 skills that I use pretty much all the time. She has a skill called Null, which on the first turn of battle, it uses 0 MP and attacks all enemies. So right off the bat, I don't even have her equipped with anything. If you get into a fight with Xianhua and you have Null equipped as one of your skills, and it sure would be nice to fight something sometime.
This is pointless, but sure, I'll fight.
It's not preemptive, so it's not the best farming technique. But if you give her like a falcon badge, then she would go first. But Null will attack all enemies and uses 0 mana. So if you don't have a farmer of some kind and you need to start farming, or you want easy farming, Xianhua technically can do the job. So just run around and cast Null on things. And hope that your speed is higher than your enemies, or give her a falcon badge. But farming is definitely not the main use of Xianhua. So let's go ahead and get rid of that Null skill and continue with the skills. She has hacking and breakdown, which admittedly I have not used very much of. It improves the team's power and magic resistance, but it reduces intellect and physical resistance. Not only does it affect your party, it affects all enemies. That's hacking. Breakdown is the opposite. It improves the enemy's intellect and physical resistance, but it removes enemy and party members' power and magic resistance. I guess like for a magic team, for example, improving the intellect would be great. Power doesn't matter, and if you're fighting against a bunch of melee, like power-based enemies, then you're reducing their magic resistance, and their chances are not doing magic resistance to you. So I can see these useful. Breakdown would be useful if you're in a magic team and you're fighting against a physical team and only. Hacking would be if you're basically paired with a bunch of physical power users and you're fighting a magic team. Link is great. It deploys Magic Stance. It also improves your maximum MP by 30%. It restores 30% of your mana, and it increases your magic damage based on your MP. So the more, I'm never really sure if it's mana power, magic points, mana points, whatever. But the higher your MP, the more damage you do with your magic attacks. So one of the ways to improve Xianhua's damage is to increase her MP. If you're already in Magic Fate stance, it will awaken the stance. And I believe it does this twice, and then it won't do that anymore. Trinity, user gains non-type magic attack by 50%, so Xianhua's damage improves by 50%, and increases skill hits by 1. So an attack, for example, that attacks 5 times would then attack 6 times. Things like Horizon, that normally attacks twice, would attack 3 times. It also gives the team a 50% damage barrier, and it lasts for 3 turns. So if you're up against a boss that attacks you multiple times, it's great. So if you are in an awakened fate stance, the non-type magic attack buff increases to 100%. And then finally, her stellar skill is Tesseract, which I'll get into a little bit later. But the 3 skills that I tend to have on her: Horizon, which is my spammable AF skill, her main damage dealing skill; Trinity, to improve the number of hits that Horizon does, and for defensive purposes. There's this discussion, non-type magic attack. So what exactly is that? Almost every character in the game is a type user. If you have Sesta, for example, she does wind type damage. If you have Minalka, she does fire type damage. Every single character has some type of element attached to them, except for a very small handful. Xianhua is one of those. You'll notice that none of these skills have any type of color attached to them. These are not shade skills, these are not crystal, these aren't fire, earth, anything. Which means when you're choosing equipment, things that say type attack improvement, like the Void Staff, actually do not improve her damage. She is a non-type user. So most equipment does not help. Things like the Dark Spirit Rod says non-type attack. So this would actually improve Xianghua's damage. It also improves her physical resistance. So when you're looking through all of your gear and you see the words type attack and some type of improvement, that is not helping Xianhua. Benedict, if you happen to have him, an axe user, is in the same boat. Type attack damage does not really help him. So when you're scrolling through, looking at all of your gear, see Miyake's staff, type attack. You go, oh, I use Miyake's staff all the time. That's not going to help Xianhua. Now that said, other factors can. So the Void Staff, even though it improves type attack, which is meaningless, it also gives her a critical rate of 100%. So you don't have to rely on buffs to give her a natural 100% critical rate. So you can still equip things like the Void Staff, and that guarantees her critical damage, but just keep in mind that if it says type attack, that's not going to help. So what type of gear would help? Well, as far as armor goes, when you're looking at stuff, anything that improves critical strength, or magical critical strength technically, would be good. So like the Dryad's Ring, for example, would be a good ring. Remember that her damage improves by however much mana she has. So things like the Subspace Ring, which improves mana by 50, would help. Or the Discipline Ring, if you level that up. That's pretty easy to get fairly early on. So the Discipline Ring, I think maxed out, gives like 50 mana as well. So any gear that improves your mana will help her damage. Of course, anything that improves resistances still helps keep her alive, but things like the Guidance Ring that says type attack, that's worthless. You might as well just be putting on nothing. So look for anything, things like damage when she's at max health still works. Anything that improves mana still works. Other gear, such as stuff that would give regen or resistances, all that works. Just avoid anything that improves type attack, because that type of stuff does not help. So a good mid-game item actually probably would be the Subspace Ring. So the Discipline Ring would also be a good choice. That's very easy to get early on. I'm just going to go ahead and put that on, even though it's not leveled because my Xianhua, I happened to pull her, so I had points to get her Stellar Awakened, and she has a lot of extra mana through that. So her mana, if you get to 1087 mana, either through buffs or through gear, that's when you can kind of stop, because at that point she's maxing out her bonus damage. So yeah, if you want to round up, basically 1100. And then for badges, anything that gives mana would be a good idea. Intellect, of course, is a great idea. I use a charm badge a lot for my more advanced team, but for right now, we're just going to go with an int badge for mid-game gearing. And then the power of pains or the power of poisons, both of those still work just fine with her. So Bullseye, Rose with Thorns, and for her third one, I like to throw on Adversity. It increases damage for each enemy in battle. And if you remember, her Horizon skill attacks all enemies. So it's kind of designed for if you're fighting against 2, 3, 4, 5 enemies at once, Horizon will get more and more deadly thanks to that Adversity. So that's the third or upgrade that I prefer to use. But, you can do whatever you want. And, of course, if you have her Valor Chant, Grasta, by all means, equip it. More intellect. So let's see how she functions on the test dummy. Xianhua has several features unique about her. First of all, at the start of each turn, her intellect will be increased based on the average intellect of the front line. So if you have 4 characters and they all average to, let's say, 280 intellect, she will gain 280 intellect. It caps at 300, and it does take buffs into account. So if after the first turn, if you have a character that buffs the whole team's intellect by 50%, and another character that buffs intellect by, say, 25%, then on turn 2, her intellect will probably, the intellect will average out and probably be 300 at that point. So you don't have to go and gear every single character to have 300 intellect. If they all have like 250, 260, buffs can raise it up, and by turn 2, she'll be at max. It also gives her a magical critical rate of 100%. So a weapon like the Void Staff that has 100% critical rating, it's not necessary that you have that either. She has a natural critical rate of 100%. However, when she's in another force and you're going through spamming all those skills during another force, shared knowledge is dispelled after the first attack. So if you want to make sure that you have 100% critical rate the entire time during an AF burst, then you probably want to equip something like Elpis gear or Void weapons, anything that has 100% critical rating. She also has mental focus for 3 turns, but that's because she's Stellar Awakened. If you don't have her Stellar Awakened, you won't have this at the start of a fight. So, let's go ahead and cast Link. That deploys Magic Zone and improves her MP. She's now past the 1100 mark, which I think it's 1087 if I remember right, but once you hit past 1087 mana, she's getting the maximum damage boost from her mana. Here on turn 2, if we already have a Magic Zone deployed, Link can awaken it. And she gets even more mana. Turn 3, we can cast Trinity, and because we are in an awakened Magic Fate stance, her buff increase will be 100%, as well as giving her a damage barrier and improving her number of hits by 1. So on turn 4, when she attacks with Horizon, it will hit 3 times. And because the boss is over 50% health, it hits another 3 times. And on the 5th turn, we've lost Magic Zone. So if I cast Horizon now, you'll see the damage has decreased. But the first hits were all right around the 10 million mark, so she did about 60 million. And then the second round of hits were all around 5 million each, because we lost the Magic Zone. So now I'm going to showcase breakdown. So if you have a boss that does all physical damage, and you have a team of magic users, if you cast breakdown, her intellect will go up by 50, as well as the boss's, and then her physical resistance will go up by 50%, and the boss's magic resistance will go down. So breakdown is great for situations like this. Now she's going to do more damage. Let's get the awaken zone again. So now her intellect is up by 50%, and the boss's magic resistance is down by 50%. Now, one caveat to that, Horizon doesn't care about magic resistance. It doesn't matter that it's been reduced by 50% for her. But if you're with a full magic team, that means all the other characters are doing increased damage thanks to breakdown. So let's go ahead and Horizon. Remember that she does not have the extra hit this time around because we don't have Trinity. But you'll see that she's doing 11 million, 12 million per hit instead of 9 million-ish to 10 million-ish. Let's go ahead and finish this up. Breakdown is gone, and she's back to doing around 4 million per hit. So about the same amount of damage both ways. But one way, if you're fighting a boss that does a lot of physical damage, she will reduce that tremendously and make the boss that much easier. At this point in my videos, I usually like to pair Xianhua with a bunch of free or relatively easy to get characters to showcase how they can support her. In her particular case, it's a little tricky finding characters that will help her. So Xianhua is a non-type character, which means typical skills, for example, if I have characters that can reduce type resistance on enemies, that doesn't help me. First of all, she doesn't do type damage, and second of all, her Horizon skill treats it ignores defenses, so it treats magic resistance as 0. So anything that reduces magic resistance or type resistance is worthless. In addition, any skills that improve type attack, for example, Colette's Holy Song skill, is worthless because she doesn't do type attacks, she does non-type attacks. So when you're looking through all of these characters, you're looking for anything that can improve Xianhua directly, anything that can boost her mana, her intellect, and remember that one of her passive skills is it takes the average intellect from the first 4 from the frontline characters. So the characters I have come up with, Mayu is a magic user. She has, for her attack, Cogito, which doesn't really help anything. It's just a water type attack. But what she does have is Rogue Dance, which improves intellect by 20%. And when the another force gauge is at 100, critical power is improved by 30%. It doesn't say magical critical power, so I'm not 100% sure if that part helps, but it is a 20% intellect boost. She also has Eternal Silence, which includes an MP regen. So she's not the best character that can help Xianhua, but she can help restore a little bit of Xianghua's mana, and she does improve survivability a little bit. As far as gear, I just gave her standard gear. Plasma Rod, Plasma Ring, an Int badge, which happens to be 25, and some power of regens, including one that is upgraded, so every staff user has a health regen. It puts her intellect at close to 300. It's 267. 7 probably is the most helpful. He's relatively free because it's not too hard to get him. With his Monsoon skill, he can inflict pain and it ignores target resistance. It's not permanent, he has to reapply it every 3 turns. If I'm not in a zone, it will deploy Wyrmking stance, but I do have the ability to be in Magic Zone, so that part shouldn't matter too much, and if I accidentally deploy Wyrmking stance, I can cast a Magic stance anyway. But he can serve as a pain setter. And he also has Rampage Gale, which when another zone is deployed, including a Magic Zone, all critical, it's guaranteed critical and damage 40% for all weapon users. So that part will improve Xianhua. And technically he has Tailwind, which improves speed by 15%. So if there's another force gauge going on, they go a little bit faster. But basically 7 is our pain setter and has the ability to buff Xianghua's weapon damage a little bit. Like before, I gave Plasma Rod, Plasma Ring, 25 int badge. That puts his int at 287, and he has 3 power of the pains. Nothing is upgraded. And then finally, Nona. I have her another style selected. She also has, for her attack, just a water attack. Nothing particularly interesting. She can convert her attacks using Concordia and everything to become magic attacks if I really want to. Concordia improves the damage of all party members with weapons by 30% and critical damage by 30%, and it lasts a while. So this skill alone will definitely help Xianhua. It can also deploy a zone based on the devotion target's weapon type. So if I cast devotion on Xianhua and then cast Concordia, she can produce a magic zone. And then she also has a skill, Quare Caro, gives regen, physical resistance, and type resistance. So it helps with survivability as well. So they can all buff to some degree and help Xianhua. As far as sidekicks, Pishy, or Pissy, however you pronounce it, casts a regen, but he also casts a stacking int buff. So it stacks 5 times and it lasts a while. So he can basically help keep the team alive, and he can improve Xianghua's intellect. He also has an aura, but it's very specific, and it doesn't help Xianhua anyway. Iridian is another free sidekick that can help. Now, while his skills, none of them are particularly useful, you could basically use him as a cheap Tetra, getting heals and mana back. But the aura means if my characters take wind damage, Xianghua's intellect goes down. However, the blue Iridian, his aura activates when a party member's HP is 80 or below, and it improves their type resistance. So a little kind of freebie buff whenever they get hurt. So those are the 2 free ones that I've chosen. For reserve characters, normally you go to your main damage dealer, Xianhua. You look at personality traits like Eastern, Scientist, Synthhuman, Staff, and KMS. And then you pick back row characters that fit those personality traits. For example, Helena is a Synthhuman and a Staff user. So say, okay, that works. If you try to equip Almighty Powers, and in this case, Synthhuman, if you read the description, it says the effect type attack improves for all party members. Well, Xianhua is a non-type attack. So for characters like Xianhua and Benedict, the almighty powers that improve type attack don't do anything. They won't help you at all. So equipping these is actually kind of pointless. So instead, you have to look at other forms of damage. For example, Resonant Power Shadow. It improves the damage for each shadow ally. And I think if you have at least 4, that maxes out at 30%. That one does not say anything about type damage. Power of the Void is an example of one that specifies non-type attacks. improve. So Power of the Void Staff, as long as it's upgraded to affect all party members, is an excellent choice. That one will improve Xianhua. And then the Sound Bodies, they improve health, but they improve mana. And remember that Xianhua, with mental focus, the more mana you have, the more damage she can do. So the Sound Bodies actually will help Xianhua with her damage. So in Helena's case, you may or may not have Resonant Power Shadow. In fact, let's remove that one for now, because that's kind of a harder one to get. But the rest, Sound Body, Synth, Power of the Void. Whoops, going the wrong way. Still going the wrong way. Enhance at low and max HP for staff users. It doesn't say anything about type attacks or non-type attacks. This is just all damage. So those are good choices. So we have Sound Body Staff, giving 50 mana. And then we have Sound Body Synth Human that gives 50 mana. So right there's 100 extra mana from the reserve characters. And you don't have to have Yuna. The 3 staff ones could be equipped by anyone. So as long as you have a free staff user, you could give them all 3 of these. So those are what I believe to be good choices for Xianhua. So you've seen the free-ish team. 7's not quite free. And Nona AS, you have to go through a little bit to get this style. But overall, Intellect 267. We got Xianhua, who's all the way at 362, and that's with relatively normal gear. 287 for 7, 246 for Nona. She's equipped with an Int badge, and I just gave her a Miyake's bow. I was looking for anything mid-game wise that might actually help. Dark Spirit bow might be a little more useful because it has a little bit of type resistance. But there you go. So we have an average intellect close to around 270 or 280 for all the characters. And we have the reserves giving her some extra mana, or MP. Remember, of course, that I'm getting 80, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm getting 240 extra mana from her stellar board. So your mana might not be quite as high. You might be around 700 or 800 mana. But that's okay. Remember that her skill improves mana by 30%. So even 30% of 800 would put you around over 1,000. So let's go check out this team in action. At the start of battle, we can cast Link. In her case, we can go ahead and we can either buff up type resistance, start an MP regen, things like that, or we can immediately start buffing up intellect, or we could just attack. So let's go ahead and start a regen. In his case, we want to inflict pain, and we'll do that on turn 2 because Link is not preemptive. So if 7 goes first, there's no big deal. But if Xianhua goes first, he'll overwrite the magic stance. So for his first turn, we could improve speed, or we could just attack. So we'll go ahead and improve speed. And then we can either buff up the team, go ahead and improve damage. That one lasts 5 turns. We could apply devotion. So we'll do that. We'll devotion Xianhua. That takes a little bit of her stats except for health and mana and gives them to Xianhua, which means Xianhua's intellect will improve as well.
Go. I've got you.
So now we have a magic zone. We can go ahead and buff up intelligence, do Trinity for the extra hit. Now we can cast Monsoon and inflict pain. And now we can go ahead and Concordia.
Die.
We now have an awakened magic zone, an enemy with pain, and Xianhua pretty much as buffed as she's going to get with this team. So let's go ahead and have her do Horizon and just see what the damage looks like. She did about 500 million damage on the dummy. Each hit was around 80 million, and she did 3 hits, and she attacked again because the boss had over 50% remaining. So 6 hits, 80 some million each, you're looking at about 480 plus some change. So we have 1 turn left of enhanced magic. We could blow the AF gauge, spam Cognito, Horizon, Rampage Gale, and Castigo, and just see what we can get out of about 3/4 filled bar. You notice that we will go ahead and get started. Since this is the 4th turn, we have lost a few of Xianhua's buffs, but that's okay. And we did 669, about 670 million damage on the test dummy, following about 500 million damage from the previous turn. So there was 4 turns worth with relatively free characters, and we did about 1 billion in damage. So let's go and test this out in a real situation. So here we have the Terra Nivium 20,000 BC. It is a level 9 super boss according to the wiki. And on the first turn here, we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Rogue Dance. We're going to cast Link, which will deploy the Magic Fate stance. We're going to do Tailwind. Actually, we're going to do Monsoon, because that will inflict pain, and we'll be in a zone at that point, so it won't do the Wyrmking stance. And we'll do Concordia. So we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 2. 2, 3, 4, 2, and then spam all 1s. Here on the second turn, we're going to apply Devotion and improve type resistance and cast Horizon. That will put the boss at its 50% stopper. We're going to do Horizon again. We're going to do let's do Defense and Rogue Dance again. And even though we're in a fire zone, 1 more Horizon should do it. And while not a perfect fight since 7 got knocked out, it was a doable fight with basically free characters. I will say that there's not much defense going on here. As you could see, 7 was defeated pretty easily. So that is something to factor in, but if you're in like mid-game chapters like 60s and 70s and 80s, a team like this should work decently for you. And of course, you probably have a few stronger characters to use as well. For a more endgame style, there are other options. Let's go ahead and put Resonant Power Shadow back on. Now, Xianhua is a magic user that benefits from other magic users' intellects and their buffs. She doesn't care too much about debuffs, so it's more about buffing and survival. There are multiple characters that can help. Mayunfa, Iffy, Flammopolis are good choices. In addition, if you really need tanking, you have Dunnerith Altar as a potential tank. Palm AS is a good magic support character. Probably one of the best is Yakumo, but unfortunately I don't have him. Sidekick-wise, I usually just stick with Tetra and Gunts. It's possible Yakumo's sidekick might be better, but so this team is what I've come up with. Xianhua endgame is usually geared with Elpis gear. The Dryad's Ring is really good for her since it improves her critical strength. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, I usually go with the Charm Badge. I don't care that her type resistance is decreased a little bit. She ideally should not be taking damage or should be killing things very quickly. As far as the rest of the team, Mayunfa has this gear. Nothing super fancy. The Enduring Staff is an OOPA Arts Staff. The Dark Wreath Ring is a +1, so it's not highly improved. It improves speed and type resistance just a little bit. She has a Toto's Theater World badge for extra health. And then I gave her 300 HPs that are not upgraded, so she has 6,400 base health. Iffy is the same Iffy in many of my other teams. Purity Staff, Subspace Ring, HP Badge, and a bunch of HP Ores and HP Grastas for survivability. She has 7,600 base health. And Flammopolis, apparently is not equipped at all. Let's give her just something for right now. The back row characters are the same as before. And this time, Sidekicks, Tetra, and Gunts. Gunts will improve Xianghua's intellect by 20% whenever I blow the AF gauge and get it down to 0. The others all have different skills that will help out, so let's showcase those. So here on the first turn, we'll deploy Magic Fate Stance, get some pain going. Flammopolis on the first 3 turns has extra abilities. So she can reduce power and intellect and speed on the enemy. The buff increase for intellect and speed and staff type characters' damage is basically doubled within the first 3 turns. Or I can do a water type attack damage. So let's go ahead and increase the buffs. Actually, Mayunfa has Charity Blend, which will preemptively deploy Magic Fate Stance. So if I cast this, it will preemptively go, and Link will deploy the Enhanced or Awakened Magic Fate Stance. So turn 1. There's our Awaken zone. Team is very buffed. Turn 2, we will Trinity. If we cast I'll Do My Best, party's power, intellect, and speed will increase. They gain a shield, and so forth. Nocturnal Procession will improve intellect by 50% as well. We've already buffed the team, so at this point Flammopolis could either debuff or start attacking. One of her attacks, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, Pentalpha, will apply Weapon Break magic, 3 stacks. Now magic break doesn't affect Xianhua too much because remember her horizon attack assumes that magic defense is at 0. So we're going to cast Horizon here on turn 3, and also have the other 3. Let's see. Let's do this again. I don't want them to damage the dummy so you can see it. So we'll do Please, which preemptively improves all type of weapon damage, and then stacks 4 spoiling on the ally to the right. So Please will buff the ally to the right, which in this case is Xianhua. So let's see, we got Lunatic going, that won't do damage, that won't do damage. Please will buff her. So let's see what kind of damage on turn 3 with all of these buffs. Let's see what happens.
Die.
And as you saw, Xianhua one-shotted the dummy. It looked like the first number was a 5, so I think she did about 1.5 billion in damage. I think each hit was around 500 million. I'm sure I'll see in editing, and you all can always pause it for yourself. But so that is a buffed up team. Again, defensively, not a huge amount of defenses. Iffy, of course, will revive everyone 1 time, and if everyone gets revived and you cast Shade Zone, you'll get the blood contract back, so that is one way to stay defensive. The other catch is this team naturally does not have any barrier piercing. If Iffy uses up her blood contract on a character like Xianhua, she will barrier pierce. So let's see how this team works in a practical environment. So we're going to try out this group against the Uquaji clan. And let's see if any are null to magic. Nope. Alright, so turn 1, we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Prane, Trinity, Nocturnal, and Hermoder Galder. And we're also going to try and work in Rosa Liliac. I might try to do Rosa Liliac first. So we'll do 2, 2, 3, 2, and then pretty much all 1s except for Iffy's number 2. So 2, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. You'll see that Uquaji's already defeated. And that was extremely quick. For this example, I thought I'd do a slightly different boss than usual. We're going to try and beat up the Shadow of the Divine Tree with this team. Here on the first turn, deploy Fate Stance, awaken it, Pain and Poison, and we'll go ahead and buff the team up. Now there is a little bit of randomness to this fight. As you can see, my Unfa is basically stopped. So I only have 3 characters. If the boss stops Xianhua, that could be bad. So here on turn 2, we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Trinity, Nocturnal, and we'll go ahead and try and work in 1 La Mer, and then spam all 1s. So we're going to do 2, 2, 3, and then all 1s. 2, 2, 3, all 1s. You'll see the boss is already down to its HP stopper. The team is ready to go. It's turn number 3. We still have the awaken zone, and we still have one more turn where any of these could affect the boss. So we're going to go ahead and Lamer it. We've already cast Nocturnal Procession and Rosa Liliac, so at this point it doesn't really matter. We could, we'll just attack. Show Horizon again, and this time we never did get to do I'll do my best or please, so we could do either one, pray or please. Please, however, is preemptive, and we know just from the wiki that the Shadow of the Divine Tree does not have any more HP stoppers, so it's possible that preemptive plus Horizon plus all the previous buffs will be enough to take down this boss. And sure enough, no problem. And the Shadow of the Divine Tree was a level 10.8 super boss, according to the wiki, out of pretty much 11 possible levels. The wiki just got updated recently to show a level 12, so this isn't near the top of the list anymore, but it's still a pretty tough boss. And you just saw it knocked out in 3 turns with this advanced team. One final showcase of Xianhua's skill set, so to speak, her null type skill set, will be against the warped Kelkale. And we wait for all the healing, the curse. There we go. So the warped Kelkale is weak to one element and absorbs all other elements. Typically, in order to do this fight correctly, you would bring the ability to deploy multiple elements and whittle him down. For example, according to the wiki right now, he is weak against earth attacks. And I don't think I have any on Mayunfa. But you would have someone doing earth attacks, and then at the next HP stopper, he's supposed to convert and be weak to wind and shade, and then the next one is fire and thunder, and the final one is water and crystal. So bosses like this can be a little bit troublesome. However, Xianhua is null. You'll notice that Horizon seems to be affecting it perfectly fine. So we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Charity Blend, Link. Actually, we'll probably do Trinity. Rosa Liliac. Yeah, see there, it's absorbing the water attacks right now. And Hermoder Galder. Then we'll do 2 and then 1. So we'll do 3, 2, 3, 2. So 3, 2, 3, 2. 2, and then all ones. 3, 2, 3, 2. Oh, nearly didn't get that off. Alright, we've hit 1 HP stopper. We're going to do another Horizon, Nocturnal Procession. This time we're going to do Please. And we will try to reduce that thing's power some.
Pathetic.
Hit the next HP stopper. Turn 3. attack. We'll try praying, but that curse knocks out the prayer all the time. We've already done both of those. It's going to absorb Ecrophilia, so we'll do Rosaliliac again, and we'll rebuff the team one more time. There's the next HP stopper. Everyone's been revived once. We no longer have the magic zone. That really shouldn't matter with all of the buffs right now, but that also means since each character's died once, if I preemptively deploy Shade Stance, they'll all get their contracts back. So we'll go ahead and pray again. Horizon, Shade Stance for Blood Contract, and at this point we're on turn 4, so the extra benefits don't matter. It is weak to water, so we'll just attack.
Pathetic.
So Blood Contract was back on all characters, and she took care of business. So for super bosses that shift their weakness around or are immune to certain types, it doesn't matter if you have Xianhua. She's a non-type user, so bosses like this, as long as you can survive the attacks, are relatively easy. To show off Tesseract, we're going to try the Wyrmking. The Wyrmking is a level 11 super boss on the wiki. That's pretty much among the highest. The boss has 3 lives, and it also has a 99 stack barrier-ish that stacks physical and type resistance. Well, Xianhua is null, so this entire barrier means nothing to her. When he loses a life, he will remove all the debuffs and everything, so that is one thing to consider. And by default, he has a pretty high physical and magical resistance. So, on turn 1, we're going to deploy Magic Zone. We're going to do Trinity. We're going to inflict pain, and we're going to reduce his power. This team does not have a tank, so we are going to be relying a bit on Iffy's revive skills. Now here on turn 2, we're going to go ahead and blow the AF gauge. That will get Gunce's aura active and gives everyone 20% extra stats. During the AF gauge, we're going to pray. We're going to start attacking with Horizon. We're going to do Nocturnal Procession and her Motor Galler, which it's the first 3 turns, so that will improve int and staff damage by 100%, not 50. So we're going to do 2, 1, 2, 2, and then all ones. 2, 1, 2, 2, and then all ones. And that should bring the boss down for the first life. Now you see a bunch of zeros. The end breath. Mayunfa's prayer reduces any damage that's 1500 or below to 0. So that's kind of where that came from. Now we have a full burst bar. So Tesseract, certain basically buffs will become debuffs. It does not say that debuffs become buffs, so it also means exposed magic on all enemies until turn end, which means this boss will be weak to magic. So here goes Tesseract.
Enlightenment is the key to unwavering
It's now weak to magic, which means it's weak to Xianhua and Horizon. Now we still have Magic Zone for 1 turn. So here we can repray, we can preemptively buff Xianhua, even though it lasts for 3 turns. There's all sorts of things we can do. So we're going to go ahead and Rosa Liliac, and we are going to let's be on the safe side and try and debuff. Xianhua took down the boss's 2nd life. And Breath still did not do any damage. And because Philoppolis went last, the 3rd life already has a bit of a damage debuff. So now we're going to reduce some more. We'll go ahead and do Weapon Break, Horizon. And I think we're out of Magic Zone. Yep, so we're going to do Charity Blend. Actually, that probably means we're out of Trinity as well, so now would be a good time to rebuff everything. There's Magic Zone, extra hits. There's the first revive from Iffy. There's the 2nd revive from Iffy. So Mayunfa still needs to get hit before we lose Blood Contract. We're going to Horizon. We're still praying, so we're going to Please Nocturnal Procession, and we will attack again. This should hit Mayunfa, sorry. Got a little slack mispronouncing her name before. We can Horizon. We can Rosa Liliac again. Go ahead and attack. And how are we on prayers? Done on prayers, so it's time to pray.
Die.
So the boss is down to its last life once we knock this one out, which Horizon should do this turn. So we are going to do Please again. We're going to do Nocturnal Procession. And it's about time that we rebuff the team. Here goes the last life. Mayunfa barely survives. And the boss now no longer has any lives, and we have a full AF gauge. The boss still has pain poison, so if we try to blow the AF gauge and knock the boss's health out, we don't necessarily have to worry about Rosa Liliac. So we are going to do... How are we on prayers? No more prayers since she took damage. Alright, so we're going to do 2. How's Trinity looking? Don't see any extra hits. Alright. So that means we're going to do 2, 2, 2, and 2. Just make it easy. Actually, why don't we do 1? So keep that AF gauge going a little bit longer. So we'll do 2, 2, 2, 1, then spam all 1s, and if we get the burst and Tesseract back, we'll go ahead and use it too. So 2, 2, 2, 1, and then all 1s. And it looks like we may not need the burst, but just for fun, there's Tesseract.
Enlightenment is the key to unwavering truth.
With a lot of damage.
Squeal like the whelps you are.
So maybe not the best example of Tesseract, but as you could tell, the exposed weakness really helped on turn 2 to knock out the boss's second life. And that was the Wyrmking with a tank-free all-magic team featuring Xianhua and her stellar skill Tesseract. Just to quickly showcase one more use of Tesseract, since the Wyrmking's example kind of showed off what was going on. Here is Ewan's true manifest fight, the Fiery Lion.
In my ear.
Here on the first turn, we are going to begin praying. We are going to cast Breakdown, which will reduce his power but raise his intellect, and my team's as well. We're going to put Pain Poison on and reduce his power as well. So the Breakdown, obviously his attack only did about 200 some damage. In part also, praying does reduce damage by 50%. Now here on turn 2, we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Charity to deploy Magic Fates, and then we're going to do Please. We're going to start spamming Horizon. We're going to do Nocturnal and Hermoder Galder, and then spam the main attacks for everyone. So we're going to do 3, 1, 2, 2, and then pretty much all 1s. 3, 1, 2, 2, all 1s. We're going to try and get the gauge up as much as possible. Alright, we were able to awaken the magic zone in the process, and we have the ability to stellar burst.
I'll beat anyone who gets in our way.
Now, right now, he has a bunch of debuffs, but he also has a power increase and an int increase. The int is from Breakdown. The power increase is just his natural, over time, ability to do power. So we are going to burst and Tesseract. This will do damage, a decent bit of it, and it's going to swap around his buffs. You will notice now he has 0 buffs. The int buff that I had given him through Breakdown turned into a debuff, and his own stacking buff turned into a debuff. So that's really nice. So we are going to Horizon again. We are going to Icrophilia. We're going to go ahead and do the power and int debuff again since it's turn number 3. This is our last chance to do that. And we're still praying, I believe. Yep. So we're going to just cast Please at this point. Horizon should knock him down to his last life. In fact, right there you saw that she hit the damage cap of 2 billion. And he hit me for, what was that, like 40? If we check his stats, he still does not have any buffs. So we are going to go ahead and at this point we'll just do Please again, Horizon. We're going to rebuff Nocturnal Procession and just plain attack. Quite pathetic. Very easy. So that was Ewan's true manifest fight, and that was a fairly good example of showing how you can cast Breakdown, which would give him some debuffs and some buffs, and then use Tesseract in Stellar Burst to remove the buffs that you just gave him. In addition, a lot of bosses, such as this particular manifest fight, that self-buff, Tesseract will turn those into debuffs as well. So if a boss thinks they're getting really powerful, just Stellar Burst Tesseract, and they will find themselves extremely weak. In summary, that's Xianhua for you. When you build her, you want to build her so that she has a very high intellect and a high level of magic points. For skills, if you don't have her Stellar Awakened, I recommend Horizon, Trinity, and Link. Or in certain cases, Breakdown and Hacking could be very useful. Breakdown if you're fighting enemies that are physical in nature. Hacking if you're fighting enemies that are magic in nature. And her stellar ability, Tesseract, while nice to have, is not vital. Her strongest attack, in my opinion, and from what I can tell, is Horizon, which all 5-star Xianhuas get. So that's the reason you want the high int value. Horizon does massive damage and ignores defenses. And if you hit a boss at 50% health or more, it will attack a second time. Xianhua is a null type user, which means all those type attacks don't help at all. A lot of the personality Grasta don't normally help either. So you have to rely on Grasta, shared Grasta that will improve mana, for example, or damage when HP is max, or damage when HP is below 80%. When you're equipping her, you're trying to avoid anything that says type attack, because that type of stuff is relatively worthless to her. But once you kind of wrap your head around all of that, she's extremely damaging, as you saw in this video. The fact that she does not have any type attacks means that enemies that only resist one type and, absorb all the rest, all that stuff, it doesn't matter to her. She just ignores all those mechanics entirely. Her and Benedict will do that. So if you can pull a 5-star Xianhua, or even if you get the 4-star version and upgrade, you will have a very, very powerful character. It is just very important to form a team that can support her. Myunfa, Iffy, Flammopolis, Palm AS, Yakumo, all of those are excellent characters to pair with her. As far as reserve characters, any staff user to hold the staff type Grasta would be good. And there is Sound Body Synth Human and Power of Void staff Resonant Power Shadow ores that will improve her damage as well. 2 of which can be equipped on anyone. So really you just need a synth human, and it just so happens that Helena is a free character and she's a staff user, so she's great for that particular Grasta. Anyway, if you pull Xianhua, have fun, very powerful character, and will carry you through a lot of content. maybe even allow you to cheese some of it. I hope this helps. Casual Crono, signing out.